They're excited about the extra.
All right, we here, are we there, here somewhere, Alyssa?
I think so.
You're good.
All right,
Thank you.
we're live, we're recording. Your moment to shine. All right,
I will start.
comptroller, update us.
I'm start right away.
We have a agenda.
Here's the.
Yes. I can be on.
Thank you.
You're on. Thank you. You're ready. Let me know when I fire away there.
Hi.
All right, so, thank you. I updated the report, not a lot has changed since the last month. We're in an in-between period right now where, 2024 is not finalized yet. So I gave an update through November for most items. And it's too early in 2025 for me to really update you with 25 numbers. We haven't even closed out January. So next month, I would update this to give you results of 25 through January. And then as the 24 numbers are known, I'll report back to you. What you do have for 24, the sales tax report, there are 2 payments left. We're at 19.1 million. Our budget was 19.32 million. It looks like we will finish right around 20 million, unless something drastically changes, a little under, a little over. At this point, it's leaning towards a little under, but just it depends on what these figures come in at. So, but it should be very close to 20 million for the revenue. And everything else I said, the 2024 figures are pretty tight. Nothing's changed that what I've seen so far. I've had a lot of bills coming after the year end. A lot of the revenue items were strong. Sales tax was strong, not as strong as it's been in prior years. Parking meter, violation revenue is all very good. We talked about increased enforcement for 25. I think that will continue with the focus on safety violations. Interest revenue for the year finished at $1.2 million versus a $725,000 annual budget. So that was strong. I would expect that this year that should dwindle as we spend down the rest of the monies that we received under the ARPA grant. Just to refresh your memory, those ARPA monies were free and clear for the city to invest and retain the investment proceeds on those. Okay. And we're still sitting at, for 2024, the contingency balance is a whopping $26,000. One of the transfers I have for you tonight, we're going to put some money back in there. You're going to see a lot of 2024 budgetary transfers closing out each department. So there will be draws on that contingency, and I'm hoping to, for the following month, if I can identify some more funds to replenish contingency, I will. But yeah, and just a reminder, in March, we have the 2 finance meetings. There will be the regular finance meeting and then the special finance meeting, primarily to handle 2024 closeouts.
Questions, comments for John?
I'll just make mention of, Michael asked for a report, going to hear for April, of just an update on how we're doing with the additional parking enforcement, what we're seeing out on the streets with our team, in terms of what type of tickets we're writing, revenue, things of that nature, just an overall update. But they are primarily focusing on safety violations. They're writing some overtime meter tickets as well, but so far the feedback I've received is pretty effective. I'll give you a more detailed update in April.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Move to the first item of business, several things actually. Hey, Julie.
Hi.
You want to join us up here at the table?
Sure.
You would actually take this chair.
This one?
Yeah,
If there's
because
somebody
otherwise
watching, they
people
won't be
just would
looking
look
at
at
you
the back
back.
of your head over there. Thanks. All right, first item, kayak access.
So this is a budget transfer that has been requested year over year over year, unfortunately, because of the construction of the Ward Street Bridge, but this is funding that we did receive several years ago from the State Department of Environmental Conservation to replace the kayak dock on the Roundup Creek under the Ward Street Bridge. We removed the dilapidated dock 2 years ago or so, before the project started, the Ward Street Bridge project started. And have not been able to move forward with installing a new dock because we have been able to have access to it. So I've had to get extensions for this grant. We've been granted our final extension, which is we must complete this project by November of this year. But every year, not knowing when the Ward Street Bridge will be completed, we kept moving, having a budget transfer year over year. And this is the final time I'm going to be here to ask for this. So, this is an authorization to move, to adjust, offsetting revenues and expenditures in the 2025 general fund. To accept the revenue of $50,000 and to expend the expense of $50,000 for zero financial.
Any questions for Julie on this one?
Looks pretty straightforward.
All right,
So what's the plan, oh, just another question, what's the plan for the work, for when the work would be done? Probably this summer?
I met with the engineer this week. We actually were discussing it in the context of a larger project, FEMA electrification, new electrical system that's happening in Gallup Park, and then the dock system will happen there. So our engineer will be finalizing the design for the kayak dock, and putting out to bid by March.
Okay,
And then hopefully there will be
Great.
construction and installation this year.
great.
So I have to have everything installed, all reimbursements done before November, so. Ideally, we would get it in this year.
Motion.
got a motion to approve by Steve Shabbat, second,
Second,
Sarah Paskey. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote, all in favor?
aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Julie. Then we move to the next one, which got some dollar signs with it.
I'm sorry, I don't even know which one's the next one. There are two.
Kingston Point Smooth Facility, 189 of 204. This is the,
Yes,
adding, look at, $253,892.
yes. So, the city received a New York Swims grant for Kingston Point Beach. This is a new grant that we received, last year, $3.3 million. At the time, the budget was designed for the application based on a 2020 estimate of the project. We submitted exactly the amount that we had in the estimate, and the match was based on it. Upon the award in 2024, they asked for an updated estimate. And so I had to go back to the firm that did the estimate, and the engineering firm updated the estimate to 2024 numbers. And in doing so, the project estimate went up. And so, I had to submit that to New York Swims folks who we're not in contract with yet, and update the budget, and they're not going to give me any more money. So in order to justify the match, I need to come here for a match. The difference that was, in the estimate from 2020 to 2024 was $253,892. I will say I intend to, so what I'm requesting is, and I don't know how this works, John, or whoever can explain it, but you've already approved the expenditure in the first instance and the original match of $835,836. That was done through resolution 189 of 2024. So I don't know if this would be a modification to that resolution or a new resolution. with additional match.
I think it would, I mean, it would be a resolution to amend the original resolution, I would think.
I'm here because the
Yeah.
funder needs a resolution that states that we have the money in.
And that's, my only question on that one, Julie, would be, right, because we still have to, you're looking for resolution to authorize the funding in the first instance. And with the city match to be made up from some type of combination of in-kind donation, forced account labor,
Yes.
bonding, other grants, other, whether it's a private grant or other governmental grants. The only caveat is to the extent that there's bonding involved, we want to have the bond ordinance in place before we spend any funds on a project that we would look to bond for. So, I mean, that can come at, it doesn't, that
I'm not
doesn't need to
even
be today,
Yeah.
whether or not that's even, whether or not that's even on the table right now. I mean, if we don't think we're gonna have to bond for it, then that's a moot point, but.
Well, I will just note that in order to make up for this, now what will be a total match of $1.09728 million, I intend to apply for that amount of money or more through the NOAA Transformation Habitat Restoration Grant, which is due in April, with the asterisk that hopefully NOAA exists in April, and I will apply to them for this funding. But they do have a grant available that would be able to match for this room.
Okay.
If I wouldn't be successful in that grant, I still need a match of $1 million.
Okay. Yeah, I think for tonight, it sounds like you need the resolution that you've asked for. Probably once the financing is a little more known, we should talk about a bond ordinance. The other thing a bond ordinance would allow us to do would be to advance fund some of the project expenses while we wait for grant reimbursements to the extent those funds are on a reimbursement basis rather than advanced basis. Most grants are, right? So I do know cash flow is much tighter right now than it's been in a number of years. So having a bond ordinance in place to advance fund would be preferable, especially for a project of this size. I mean, this is a fairly large project.
Yeah.
But I don't think we need that tonight, but we need the resolution you're asking for.
Is there any steel or aluminum in this project?
It is.
So we gotta add, what, 25%?
Was it 25 and 10 or something like that? 25
I don't know the answer to that. If we move, the one part that I would think of that might have that, and I don't know if you're being facetious in this conversation, but I'm gonna move forward looking on.
I keep thinking I'm being facetious, but it's true.
So what, it's a terrace beach. I don't think any of the terracing would include steel, but there is a proposal for a pier.
Mhm,
The pier absolutely could be steel, right?
mhm.
But I don't.
As opposed to
know that.
wood.
Oh, I don't know. All the plans are right.
That's all right. I'm just curious. I mean, it's, who knows how long this tariff will stay in place, right? So,
Yeah,
but it's significant and it's across the board too. There aren't any exceptions.
yeah, I will say that this, the estimate from the contractor did include a contingency, but not a substantial, not like 100%. I don't know.
So I have a follow-up question, which is, if the budget goes up substantially, is there room in the contract to go back and sort of negotiate a change to the, to the original proposal?
Scope?
To the
Oh,
scope
yeah.
to account for that. So
It
in
could
other
be,
words,
yeah.
we could decide somewhere along the line that we're not going to be able to get this money, or it's, it's gone way
Oh, yeah.
beyond what we can pay. So we could go back and negotiate a change of scope, so it'd be.
Yes, and that could be the case. That could happen incidentally on its own, just with permitting. I mean, the DEC could come back and say, well, no, you're not going to appear in here, and that would knock that. This is based on a preliminary design, so it's
Yep.
not based on, it's based on conceptual design, it's not even based on preliminary design.
Right.
So yeah, unfortunately, that's, again, it was, I think I told you this last time, it was a long shot that we would get $4 million for the beach, and we got it. So at this point, I kind of feel like whatever we can put towards it will be better than what it was there.
Absolutely.
And this is also preparatory in a sense. We're not actually spending the money right away because we're looking at doing a bond. Right?
I'm sorry, repeat that. I was locked in on
Bond,
something.
James
What's that?
Bond.
James.
Yes, no. The money, if we approve this tonight, it's in a sense preparatory. It's not like the money's coming right out of the bank account.
Correct,
We're looking
yeah.
at doing a bond down.
Yeah, this is just authorizing the city's commitment to funding the match on this project. I think once we have an idea of the exact breakdown of the city's match, Julie, come back, talk to me, we could come back with a bond. And typically with the bond ordinance, what they look like, if we know what the match is and we know, what the grant involvement is, she asked for, the ability to borrow the full amount of the project with the expectation that the eventual long-term amount would be reduced by grants in a certain amount, and if that amount is known, that's put into the bond resolution.
Okay.
So.
And what is the timeline for the signing of the contract? Once you obtain this resolution, then
They are
Would submit
waiting on this
materials.
resolution.
Mhm.
We're not in contract yet for the New York Swims at the pool yet either. There's a lot of, it seems as though it was like, rush the grant, rush the award, but wait, we're going to do all these things after the fact. So I would surmise that this is one of the last pieces of information that they need. Very much like, you need to show us your bank account or show me a resolution that says this. So.
yeah, it's a process. It's for these grants, yeah. Thank you for answering my questions.
Are we making a motion to amend the previous resolution, or,
We don't need it at this point.
so there's no resolution?
No, we have a resolution. It's just
Oh.
to add the money on. We don't have a previous bond to add on to yet.
Gotcha.
So if there are no more questions, then do we have a motion to approve?
Motion, Patrick?
Tierney, second by Steve Shabbat. Any discussion?
I think that this project is really critical for the survivability of the Kingston Point Beach. I think this increase is unfortunately necessary, but I don't think this should stand in the way of the project forward. And credit to you and your office for getting us this grant.
In that, hearing no further discussion, I'll call for vote. All in favor?
Aye,
Anyone opposed? Unanimously approved.
great. That was a very
And
good
the
project.
third one,
So the third one is a new funding stream from Ulster County called SEVI, Ulster County Solar and Electric Vehicle Infrastructure. This is funding that they allocated through their ARPA allocations. And it was available to municipalities who wanted to do a project of up to $40,000 that would be matched 100%, so it's a 50% match grant for either solar or electric vehicle infrastructure. We have been extremely successful and had an extremely successful track record with the New York State NYSERDA Clean Energy Communities Program. We've gotten up to $1 million. We keep getting more and more funding for all the good work we're doing with clean energy communities. We got additional $30,000 for doing clean heating and cooling action, meaning that for people in our community who install heat pumps, we got credit. And enough people installed heat pumps in the community in a really short period of time, about 50 people in a few months, that we got $30,000 from NYSERDA. So I applied for this SEVI grant and we were successful. So what I'm asking here is expend in the first instance for the SEVI grant, which is $40,000 from the county, which would be matched by the $30,000 we've got, which is an award for the Clean Energy Communities Grant, and this would all be used to put solar on the Hasbrook Park Pavilion. The Hasbrook Park Pavilion has no demand whatsoever, so all of that would be offsetting other municipal accounts with solar. So we're able to apply those solar credits to our other city accounts. To make up the difference, and a little bit more because the project ended up coming in at $84,285. It didn't come in at that. The estimate is that includes solar, If I need to do any reinforcement of the pavilion, which I don't think that I do, I put a brand new roof on there 2 years ago. If I need any tree trimming, which I don't think I'll need, it's a very wide open area, and if I need any, electrical upgrades, which I don't think I'll need. But for a project, total project estimate of $84,000, $30,000 coming from the Clean Energy Communities Award, $40,000 coming from the SEVI grant, I would be asking for authorization to expend, and then the balance, $14,285. I stated in here that it would come from a bond, but after speaking with John, it would come from fund balance.
So I have a committee report that I updated a little after Julie's came out. We're just gonna take a contingency, which is just semantics at this point, but that's the new committee report. Anything else, everybody, it's the whole funding structure essentially the same. We're just not gonna do a bond ordinance for the 14,000. We're gonna take it from contingency in 25.
And what is the contingency that we have for 2025?
Whatever, I don't have my budget with me, I can look it up, but it's whatever was adopted. We haven't, I don't believe we've
You haven't.
gone from it yet.
I don't think we
Michael?
How many, kilowatts are we gonna generate from this? And what will be the price offset?
It would be an 18 kW system here, so I got an estimate. And I don't have the savings in front of me, but it would be, considering that the majority of it would be funded by a grant, it would be a pretty quick payback.
Yeah.
I don't have it.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, then, we have a motion to approve, motion. Shabbat, second.
Second.
Gary Paskey, any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote, all in favor? Anyone opposed?
Thank you very much.
Passing unanimously.
Thank you for coming in.
Sorry, to answer your question, it's 200,000.
Okay.
It was a
I
starting
thought it
balance.
was- Yeah.
Keith Tinky.
E-Tinting. The one that's present or the one that's on the screen?
Sorry, that was chief.
Oh, sorry
Apparently-
about that.
apparently
Sounds
you
like
can't
E-Tinting.
I can't articulate with pen.
No.
We get to look at those and you're really.
Yeah, I remember the police commission.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so this is to increase what we need to spend on outfitting vehicles. Is that right?
Two transfers really, that they're essentially monies that were initially in 24. We were approved for 450,000 for the EVs for the detective division, and we were only able to spec out and bid remain only up to 100. There's 168,000 and change left over in that account that we'd like to transfer over to 25 in order to finish spending that money. Or I have a basic breakdown of what that looks like. Also, the technology grant for the $1.149 million, we have not spent a dime on that yet. We still have, we're in the process of specing out all that equipment. And we've made some changes in the request for our records management system that was being funded by that. So it looks like, again, not a dime of that has been spent. We're going to transfer that entire amount over the 25 budget for us to spend. So
It was a
relatively simple.
carryover
A carryover.
from last year.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm explaining that right, John. I know you've helped me correct it a couple of times, but
It's essentially a carryover from, these were budgetary transfers, balances that were left in the 24 budget, that, we had approval for the vehicles in 24, they weren't able to be spent, so we're just looking to carry over the funding to 25. And then this is the unspent balance of the grant, moving out those funds from 24 to 25 as well. And this is customary. A lot of I think there's other, Sue has similar resolutions for tonight, smaller dollar amounts, but similar concept of, there's unspent grant funds that are not in the capital fund that are part of the operating budget, needed transfer from year to year. So there's always these year-end transfers to beginning of the year transfers to carry them over.
Okay,
I think relatively simple.
I think it's relatively simple. The money's there, we're just moving it from one year to the next.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions here?
Just one quick question, the technology probably more or less stays the same, so,
Correct.
right.
That,
So
we haven't changed that.
You haven't changed that, so
We
this
just
is
haven't been able to get the specs done on it.
yeah, things take time.
Yeah, we were looking at a certain camera system, if we're gonna talk about it, we were looking at a specific camera system, and Kyle, our IT director, found a different system out there that may be better than what we were looking at. And slightly less expensive. So we're actually demoing one of those cameras now, and it's,
Oh, nice.
yeah, it's
So far, so good,
so
right?
far so good.
And how's the speeding enforcement going?
It's going pretty well.
This is good.
I saw somebody pulled over on
I saw,
Broadway yesterday,
I did too.
Yeah, they're
and it
all over.
wasn't me.
They're all over, right?
They're all over. Yeah, they're-
And hopefully it will diminish because people will stop speeding, but if they don't, too
So
bad.
far, they don't, no reduction in the number of stops, so it's interesting.
Uh-huh. Well, we knew everybody was speeding and now they had a grace period and now they're paying the price. Literally.
All right, so we have a motion to approve by Steve Shabbat, second by Michael Tierney. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
And then, I think we'll wait to do Dan Baker. That's gonna require us to go into executive session. Jack, you wanna go? Or are you having fun watching what we're doing?
Learn, always learn.
Yeah, okay.
Always.
All right, so item number 8 has to do with budget transfer in the Parks Department.
So what I hear about today is the Warren Park tennis pickleball facility improvement project. We've been playing around with this for almost 3 years. Pickleball has exploded and we're getting calls every day. Can it get better? Can it get better? So we finally came up with the plan to ask for a budget transfer from the recreation fund to fund complete improvement of both facilities. At one time, it was going to be just pickleball. So we were going to demolish both playing surfaces and all the fencing, regrade, put all new asphalt down, new playing surfaces for both tennis and pickleball. We're going to swap the courts around and put 8 pickleball courts where the tennis used to be, 2 tennis courts where pickleball is, and then overlay 2 more pickleball courts on the tennis courts. So we'll end up having 10 pickleball courts in operation when needed. And then install all new black chain link fencing around the perimeter. There's been a drainage issue over there continuously in between the 2 courts. So we're going to improve that drainage issue and actually install a bioretention rain garden.
Oh, okay.
With a nice cross path through the rain garden from one court surface over to the other. So it'll really give it a nice park-like setting. I've been working with our city engineer in developing the plans. We're just about ready to put it out to bid. And I've been running it past the UFA pickleball ambassadors on a regular basis. They're quite excited. They want more and more, but I think we found a happy medium. So what I'm looking to budget is $685,000.
That's a lot of pickles.
Quick question, Jack. It did make it into the package that I see, but I know you emailed the committee report. Do you have a copy of it with you or no?
The committee report, yes, I
You
do.
do. Perfect, okay.
And is that a drawing of the
Yes, actually, I made
Oh,
copies.
excellent.
My estimated budget. On the second page with the actual scope of work. And I've got one for you too. if you want.
Oh,
You see the Bud Light commercial on Super Bowl?
I did not watch the Super Bowl.
I
Big,
didn't either.
big pickleball, too. William Defoe and somebody else were
Oh, yeah.
Playing against-
Pickleball?
all these people pickleball. Bud Lights,
So I had,
cases of Bud Light, and they're like jumping and they're slamming, and the other people, then they show their house, they got like a wall built out of Bud Light cases.
so a couple of years ago, the original plan was just to patch and repair the existing pickleball surface and resurface it. And I had gotten quotes back then, so I was able to use some of those numbers and inflate them
Right.
to the size of this entire project now. So I'm pretty confident with these numbers, but we did put in a hefty contingency because we're going out to bid and we don't know what's going to come in.
Give them what they want, right?
They want more.
So is this the main pickleball facility for the city, or do we have other ones?
This is the only pickleball in the city.
Okay.
And USA Pickleball ambassadors are very excited because it will become the largest pickleball facility in the region.
Wait, and the total number of pickleball courts can be
There-
10?
There'd be 8 regular courts
Uh-huh.
and then 2 ADA compliant courts for either export or wheelchair players.
That's what these are.
That's what those will be.
Huh,
Gives you a lot more room around the pickleball because you're in the middle of a tennis court.
right. I
And so
see.
your wheelchair players can play or your experts that really want to get way back, whack at it.
And then, so the tennis courts will be elsewhere in the,
No, the tennis courts would be there when pickleball's not, you can
Got-
use the tennis
so
courts.
they're still usable.
But if they got a big, because they'll have 60 to 80 people there on a Saturday afternoon playing pickleball. And so, and then you'll see the rain garden
I see.
in between the 2 courts, which will also fence off just to keep the debris and everything out of it
Mhm.
and keep it as a nice looking rain garden.
How do they get scheduled time? Do they have to wait for, is it?
Currently, it's just operated like our regular park facilities. It's first come, first serve. But the US Pickleball ambassadors have set up a website, and you can go on their website and schedule a game at our facilities. But if you show up and there's somebody already there, there's nothing you can do about it.
So it's
because
still
it's not-
first come, first
It's
served.
still first come.
Until it starts getting removed with people, and then somebody, a volunteer, hopefully would set up some sort of
Yep.
scheduling.
It's one of the issues that pickleball players are calling me with all the time. They want the USA pickleball courtesy rules posted at the park,
Ooh,
but it's not a USA pickleball facility. So I don't know that we have the right to post their courtesy rules.
People could accuse us of being in the pocket of Big Pickle.
and are they just generally rules that might make sense?
Yes,
That
they're
might-
courtesy kind of rules. They want you to be able to show up with your paddle, put your paddle on a board that lines you up for the next game. If there's a game
I
being
see.
played, once you're done with your game, you have to get off the court to make room for the
Cede it to
next
somebody
one in
else.
rotation.
Like putting a quarter on a pool table.
There
Exactly,
you go.
exactly.
I literally just said that to Rennie.
How high off the ground is this pedestrian bridge?
That pedestrian is at grade,
Oh,
through,
okay.
through the rain garden.
Okay.
It's not a physical
Yeah.
bridge.
It's right there on the ground.
You want to do one of those Japanese garden bridges?
I looked at them, I really did, but I figured maintenance wise, it's just easier to put a nice path walking right through the rain garden. It'll be a slab on grade kind of sidewalk.
Very cool.
This is exciting. I may have to learn how to play pickleball. I have friends who play it, I just have resisted.
Well, fortunately, John Schulteis plays pickleball, so he gave me a lot of assistance. Yeah, the plan.
Is he a registered lobbyist for this association? Are there grants available for this through this association to help cover? some
Over
of these
the
costs?
time, we had, one time we were gonna fund it through ARPA, but we didn't get it obligated in time. So that's when Lindsay decided to go into the Recreation Trust Fund and use that fund.
So we just elaborate on that too.
Yes.
These are the, the fees we collected, the time of development. There's a dedicated cash account, so it's not, from a cash flow perspective, it's not problematic for us. It's money that we just don't touch unless it's an approved project like this.
And our current rush schedule is to get it out to bid within the next couple of weeks. Be able to be in contract by the end of March and notice to proceed in April and have it done before summer camp starts at the end of June.
Well, ambitious schedule.
Yes, it is. Yeah, because the Lauren Park Summer Camp is one of the largest in the rec program. And so I can't be in the middle of construction,
Right.
having hundreds of kids there, so I pushes to get it done before.
Okay,
Get them out there blacktopping. Kids, the kids would love it.
And there's actually, I didn't realize it until I put all this in front of Lindsay, there's actually a tennis program involved with that summer camp at Lauren. So, because I said, well, maybe I'll get the pickleball courts done first, and then we'll come back after camp and do tennis. And she says, no, we do tennis at camp. I'm like, oh, okay.
All right, so
Okay. Thank you for all that.
is
Description.
this 600,000, is that the entire thing is gonna come out of the Recreation Trust Fund?
685,000.
And John, how much is in the Recreation Trust Fund?
We are over $1 million right now.
We haven't actually used that fund hardly at all.
It's been a number of years or since we've used it for any significant
I think-
projects.
Was the last time like repairing some roofs, pavilion roofs?
I can tell you when, just give me a second.
I remember we were using
Yeah, we-
Hasbrook Park.
Yeah. It's been quite a while.
One of the other interesting things you might want to know is I'm using the existing impervious surface footprint to build all new. So I'm not adding any new impervious surface. I'm not changing the direction of drainage or drainage flow.
Mhm.
And I'm improving the existing drainage, so it therefore will not have to go through seeker. I'm going next week to laws and rules and get it established as a type 2 and be able to move right on and get it done.
Good.
Who shall not be.
Hmm.
It said, don't tell he who shall not be named. We'll see.
We have 1.16 million
Mhm.
right now.
So this will essentially reduce it by half roughly.
And once again, I mean, this,
We don't use it that
it will,
much.
whatever isn't used will, I mean, it's not, we're not gonna move the money out until we actually,
Got it.
the bills, we actually have dedicated cash account, so we actually pay the bills from that fund, so, if it comes in at 640, that's what will come out. But yeah, roughly half. I'm going back, Randy had asked a question the last time we used it. It has been a number of years.
Oh, it's okay, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going back to like, some small items, but nothing significant for a number of years.
We need a.
Jack has it here.
Thanks. All right, the committee report reads, this request is for budget transfer authorization to fund the Lauren Park Tennis Pickleball Facility Improvement Project of $685,000 to be transferred from Fund Balance Recreation Trust Fund Reserve to Parks Construction Materials and Supplies, estimated financial impact of $685,000. We have a motion to discuss. Motion.
Second.
Second by Sarah Pasty. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you very much.
Have a great evening.
Sue, we say
You
best
too.
for last.
Nice to meet you. I
We
haven't
still
met you
have the other
before.
portion transfer.
I know that's not, yeah, right, that's,
You know, it's.
It looks like a great facility.
I'd rather take Sue.
I may actually make them to take up pickleball.
We've got the
Yeah, yeah.
acres down too, but
I'll be quick.
Hold it to that.
another one of these
Just
$300.
say
All right, so, urban forestry grant,
Yes, so this is really just a 2024 budget modification to balance out some expenditures that were made in association with the urban forestry activities. Before we hired the urban forester, we came to the finance committee and we put into the budget what we anticipated would be needed. And obviously, when he got here and started the program, he did his own little certain things. And we had money in a motor vehicle account, which he's using as an existing city vehicle. So that money is no longer needed, so we put it towards tree plantings at the end of the year. This is all 100% covered under the USDA grant, so it's not a city fund, it's really a straight, just to balance out the budget from last year. Straight transfer.
That's easy.
any questions for Sue on this then? Hearing no questions, then do we have a motion to approve?
Second.
Tierney, second by Sarah Pansky. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Thanks for that one, Sue. What's next?
Which one do you have next? There's two.
I
Budget
have,
modifications.
let's see, $25,000
This is 20.
Wilbur neighborhood.
Okay.
district.
All right, so this is a grant for $25,000 from New York State. This is for the local Wilbur Historic District to engage a consultant to prepare nomination forms to the state national registers. This grant was approved, we accepted it, and we did have it in the 2024 budget. The resolution is referenced in my communication. It was $25,000, the grant is 15, and we were using 10,000 out of the fund balance. And this will go towards a consultant.
What are they doing?
They're doing the state and federal nomination forms to the local district, the Wilbur local district, historic district. So we're going
To
to
become a
upgrade
historic
it to state and national levels. That's our goal.
And presumably there is a volume of paperwork to be filled out.
There is, it's extensive. It is extensive, yes.
Yes. And that's why you need someone with experience doing
Yeah.
this to be able to go ahead and fill out.
We did have because we still do not have the contract, which is why, another reason why this got carried over to this year.
Okay.
Even though it was, the grant was awarded last year, we did have a actual, call this morning with state officials. The money is in the state coffers. The question obviously was whether it was in jeopardy.
Right.
At this point, they do not believe that that is the case. There's no reason. They actually told us, even though we don't have the contract in place, we should start preparing the RFP for the consultant. So we're going to start doing that. So when we do have the contract, we'll be able to immediately turn it around and get it out and engage somebody with the project. So
Thank you for that update.
We're taking the money from the fund balance, the 10,000.
And
Is that
that's
right?
from the fund balance.
Right, John?
yeah, I mean, the money was from the fund balance last year, so it's
Another carryover.
But it's a carryover.
It is a 25 resolution.
So So it's a zero. Okay,
Technically, it's a $10,000 estimated financial impact. It was 10,000 impact last year, and it ended up being zero because it,
Yeah, okay, so,
I mean, I would probably just put 10,000. as
Okay.
financial impact.
you put 10,000?
Right now, it's zero.
Right now, it's a zero on the board, but
I know, but, so that's what it should be.
Yeah, it should be 10.
Wait, I'm sorry, it should be 10,000?
It should be 10. Conceptually, I think, it was listed as zero because it's already been requested
Okay.
once, right? So, but for purposes of 25 budgets, $10,000.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve? Motion by Steve Shabbat, second by Michael Tierney. Reads, requesting a fiscal year 2025 budget modification to the Stark property account as follows for purposes of carrying out the grant under New York State OPRHP CLG for consultant services to prepare nomination documents for Wilbur Local Stark District nomination to the state and national register. Coming from $15,000 from New York State grant, $10,000 from fund balance, to the line consultants, $25,000 total. Mayor is authorized to, in the first instance, to expend the fund under the terms of the grant in the amount of $15,000. This action is a type 2 action under seeker. Any discussion? No discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
I,
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. And then,
my house.
so the next one is a very similar situation. It is another grant from New York State PRHP. This one is a Maritime Heritage Subgrant. This one was also within the 2024 budget under Resolution 123. The funding was placed in the budget. It's a $20,500 grant. There is a $20,500 local match. However, that's being provided through in-kind services that are being done in conjunction in partnership with the Heritage or the Hudson River Maritime Museum. So this is a cash allocate. This is the money we need to hire consultants to do a condition study of the Rondout Lighthouse. And the RFP is out right now, and we are expecting the proposals back in March. And there's an extreme amount of interest, so it's going to be very interesting. It's very competitive.
Good.
okay, it reads, the report reads, requesting a fiscal year 2025 budget modification to the historic property account as follows for purposes of carrying out the grant under New York State OPRHP MHS for the Rondout Lighthouse Conditions Study and Improvement Project. Comes from New York State grants, goes to consultants. The mayor is authorized in the first instance to expend the funds under the terms of the grant in the amount of $20,500. This action is a type 2 action under seeker. Motion to approve.
Motion.
Second by Pasty, second by Michael Tierney. Is there any discussion? Any no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Thanks,
Thank you.
Sue.
Thanks, Doug.
Have a good night.
Good night.
See you tomorrow. Yeah.
So the budget transfers?
Yeah, so we need to go back in the, there's a reconciling of accounts from Lindsay Timbrook.
Yeah.
This is item number 7, I think.
This is a 2024 closeout. And there's no financial impact Transfer totaling 57,233. Just moving monies from her various accounts to other accounts. I'm pleased that she's able to cover the transfer overages within her own budget.
Motion to approve by Michael Tierney, second. By Steve Shabbat. Report reads budget transfer from fund balance $57,233 to reconcile with Parks Retirement Accumulation Account. Wait, is that right? Was it retirement account?
No, I think that's, to reconcile parks, I think that's a typo from probably a template that she was using. It's budget transfer. It's a budget transfer to reconcile, can I just confirm this?
Yep. Doctor it up.
2024 budget transfer. Personnel parks.
Okay, so now it reads 2024 budget transfer in the amount of $57,233 to reconcile parks accounts. The estimated financial impact is still $0.
That's correct.
All right, so Michael, you're still good with Steve? Still good with seconding it? Okay, no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. All right, we will now move to the item for Dan Baker. We'll come back to do the other thing. Dan can go home. He claims to have children. Makes us feel guilty.
Can I ask that we go into attorney-client session? And I can get a hold of counsel, my outside counsel, Eric Halvernet, via phone. That's
Okay.
acceptable to you.
All right, we're going to go into attorney-client session. So we will be muting and darkening the screen while we're in that session. Thanks, Michael. All right, we are back from our attorney-client session. The report reads from the Department of Assessment, authorization of settlement in the matter of McNaughton and DePiola LLB versus City of Kingston. Property is located at 357 Wilbur Avenue. The tenants of the settlement are reduced 2023 assessment from $2,450,000 to $2,250,000. No reduction of the 2024 assessment to remain at $2,450,000. 2025 assessment to be $2,250,000. 2026, 2027, and 2028 assessments to be $2,250,000 each. So the estimated financial impact is $0. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Sarah Paskey, seconded by Steve Shabbat. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Fantastic. Thank you, Dan.
Full moon tonight, enjoy it if you can see it.
Full moon,
It is.
enjoy. That means werewolves. What are you talking about?
You did a very good impersonation.
We'll see you.
Although we should be here soon.
All right, item number 12, overnight parking fees.
Oh,
That's you?
that's me. Now,
You,
this
Sarah.
has sort of gone from, this started off in laws and rules because there were situations in which commercial vehicles were parking overnight in Forsyth Park and other parts around the city. So we had a discussion about that. What, if anything, could we do? I worked with Corp Counsel to see, because there is, in fact, the parks are closed. So there really is no overnight parking allowed. And there are signs that say that the park is open from dawn to dusk, but there's no sign indicating that there's no overnight parking. Which, so the idea was, what would be a fair, punishment if there was, if somebody was parking overnight. In laws and rules, we had a long discussion and it seemed that it was really, the punishment was too severe, that it should just be treated like any sort of parking violation if you're parking when you shouldn't be parking. And so it flipped over to finance. Andrea looked at it, and so she proposed these fees to be in line with other fees of the city as far as parking goes. And there had been some discussion also that, sometimes people find themselves stuck in parks overnight, or there might be some homeless people sleeping in cars, and how, severe, how severe you want to make a punishment for these things. So again, it was then decided that it should go to finance to come up with a fee structure that's more in line with sort of the parking fees that are paid around the city. Now, I have not, I confess I haven't checked to see if 10, 25, and 50 are in line with those fees. Maybe John has the fee schedule in front of him that he can see, but it seemed like those were, they're deterrents, but they're not, so, I think some of the punishment in some laws can be jail if somebody's parking. That seems way too severe. So these are just deterrents so that if people keep parking, because it's $10 for the first offense, 25 for the second, and then.
This says 25, 50, and 100.
Oh, 25, 50, and 100? Wait, so I'm looking, maybe I had an old list. Yeah, 25, 50, and 100. So that isn't line. We probably put in parking.
Yeah, I mean, 25 is the normal for.
Standard for the first instance, 50 for the second, and 100 for the third.
Can I ask you a question, Sarah, just
Mhm.
on, so chapter 310 of the code has the parks and recreational facilities, rules and regs, and I assume this is,
That's where we started.
right, so I guess, one of my questions is, right, this covers hours of operations, 7 AM to sunset,
Right.
use during closed hours, glass containers, things like that. Then it gets into penalties for offenses and talks
Correct.
about it shall be a misdemeanor, first offense is a fine punishable up to $100, second offense punishable by a fine up to $300 or a jail term or both.
Well, exactly.
So
Yes.
will this is what's in the code I printed today.
Mhm.
Will the code also need to change in addition to the fee schedule? Because this penalties for offenses seems to encompass
Those,
the fines for everything in that 310 of the code, which isn't just parking, right? It's for, violating other provisions of, maybe unlawful,
unlawful activity going on.
unlawful activity within the park,
Right,
the glass containers, et cetera. So I just, my only concern when I saw this is whether or not this is gonna require a provision, a change in the code, whether that's in the works as well, or whether it has happened and it's just as a current.
no, it has not happened, because it got flipped
Okay.
over here, because it seemed like it was more of a parking violation than an activity violation. So I don't, that's a good question, though, whether it should go back, and there should be acknowledgement of this particular change within the parks code. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't speak to whether it should be there as well, but it's a good question.
Yeah, the parking has to do with the vehicle being there.
Right,
Whereas all of those issues are about people's
people's behavior.
behavior in the park.
But what's prohibiting the car from being there in the first place? This code? That's why.
Well, the car can be
But you're
there,
saying
any
there's
car-
not, there's not something that says it shall be illegal to park in the city parks overnight.
That I don't know. That's what I'm asking, whether or not there's something, is there something driving the, right? Yeah, because my understanding is that anything parking is referring to city lots, not necessarily, I guess it's a matter of
Well, city
interpretation.
lots
Does it
and
cover,
regular
does it
streets
cover
and-
park lots?
Right.
Yeah, and once again, I'm not the lawyer, I just want to raise the question of whether or not 310 needs to be addressed as well.
That's a
And whether or not
good
just
question.
adding it to the fee schedule is sufficient.
I mean, I think it's always been understood that the park is closed, therefore common sense should tell you you can't park there.
And that's,
But-
and that's what I was, right, because I see in 310 of the code, it says the park shall be open at 7 AM and closed by sunset. And just layman, as a layman, I'm looking at this saying, okay, well, if the park's opening and closing is determined by chapter 310, and there's fines established in 310, are we amending a part of the fines for 310? And that's,
No, it's questionable where to put it, because we brought it to laws and rules first, because it does refer to activity in the park.
I think it makes sense to go on a fee schedule. I think my
But it
question
may-
is whether or not it also requires changing the code.
Right, well,
That's a good
yeah,
question.
because, that doesn't say anything about if you park your car before sunset and then come pick it up after 7 AM, then according to that, you aren't necessarily breaking any rules, because it doesn't say thou shalt not park in parks.
Yeah, your body is not trespassing.
Yeah,
Like, depending on the park.
But you're not allowed to
Forsyth
walk
Park, you're
in.
actually, Forsyth Park, you would be going in the park, right, the park.
I'm saying if you parked your car before
Oh,
and
right,
left it there and you went somewhere else,
right.
left the car, in other words, because that's been the
Right.
problem, is that we've had businesses parking their business vehicles in the park,
Right,
using them as a parking.
as a free parking lot.
Yeah, we're in
essentially.
essence subsidizing those businesses.
It depends on interpretation. Use during closed hours. It shall be unlawful for any person or any vehicle to loiter in or to pass through on foot or by means of any vehicle, any of the parks or other facilities herein referred to at any time other than the time officially permitted within such park or such facility.
I think all we need is if you would go and talk with Corporation Counsel and see what their concern is, we can put this on the whole business,
Okay,
because there's no great hurry to get this done.
no, and I think, in some cities, the parks are actually locked, so you wouldn't be, if you left your car in there, it would just be stuck in there. And you'd probably have to pay a fine, I don't know what the municipalities do, but in our case, people could go in there. Yeah, I'm sure they'll love to see me back in the full council, because I came to them before and we had long discussions, but I think you're right, there should be some reference that goes
Yeah.
back and forth. But
I'm
you're
not
right,
sure. I'm
absolutely.
just raising a question of whether or not it needs to be addressed there as well.
But could I at least get a feeling from the group as to whether or not the fee schedule seems appropriate or?
Yeah, Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, my main concern was the existing punishment of jail time.
I know, exactly. It seems very severe.
So a little draconian, but with the added context that it is also, like, under the way the code was written, it's also for trespassing, which kind of makes sense.
I don't think, in terms of your fees, I think they're
Yeah, I mean, they
completely
seem fine to me.
reasonable in line of, other
In line
parking
with
offenses.
the parking
Yeah.
lots. Okay. Okay, so I'll go back to core council and see what amendment, if any, they want to make to this, because it does seem, you can't, it's interesting, you can't trespass into the park. But if you leave your car there, are you trespassing? Your car is trespassing, but you're not, so, and then of course during snow emergencies, vehicles can park there, which is understood.
Ultimately, where my question goes back to is there code to put a fee, right? Is there code that is authoritative of vehicles are not allowed to park in the park lots after hours? And if so, is that the section, or is it somewhere else? And if it's that section, does that section need to be addressed, or another section of the code need to be addressed?
No, I mean, to me, I think you're right. It would make sense to say vehicles are not allowed to be parked in the park unless there's a snow emergency. And then fines can be found in the, fees schedule, something.
Right, like overnight parking in the parks, right? Yeah.
Right. And I guess that
Or
way.
maybe a special event, or like there might be, I
Well,
think
they're always
special
special
events are not really.
They're not overnight because
Yeah.
you're not allowed to be in the park overnight.
Yeah.
That's the challenge. So, okay, so I'll go back to them. But thank you for the input, so I can bring that to them.
All right, so this is going on to old business.
And I will hopefully have an answer that I can bring to next week's meeting.
Great, now we've got 2 budget transfers from the comptroller's office. Do you know anybody in the comptroller's office?
A few people.
Okay. Maybe you can speak for them.
A few. I'll take a crack at it. All right, so 2 transfers. One is, the first one is a transfer in the total amount of $995,377. This is just to move money around between employee benefit accounts, medical insurance, state retirement, dental, optical. This transfer has a positive financial impact of $408,985. So cumulatively, we were under budget with these accounts. So we're going back to what I was saying earlier about replenishing contingency for 24. We're able to put this money back in contingency for 2024, $408,000 in general fund. And to go over contingency versus fund balance, right? When we finally close out all of our 24 books, the difference between the revenues and expenditures, the extent that, expenditures exceed, or if revenues do exceed expenditures, we'd have surplus that would go back into fund balance to be used for future years. If vice versa, if expenditures exceed revenues, it will actually deplete fund balance for the year. Where fund balance is a static account, the contingency is, the budgetary account that we use throughout the year. So.
Okay. Any other questions?
Just one question, with
Sure.
contingency, I mean, money goes in and out of the fund balance, but what about contingency? Do other funds that ever go into contingency, or it's just there to be drawn from as needed?
Generally, right, so like what contingency is, just from a kind of like a conceptual basis, right? You have your budget accounts, all your departments you have budgets for, police, fire, Parks and Rec, DPW, City Hall, blah, blah, blah. Imagine contingency is its own department. It falls under me, but if it's its own department, and we put that money there just in case there is unexpected need in one of these other departments. So if we budget, like for 25, $200,000 in contingency, and there's no unforeseen events that require a draw from that contingency, we'll have that $200,000 will have been budgeted, not spent, and that will add to our surplus or reduce our deficit for the year, which will help, the fund balance.
Right.
And the fund balance is essentially the accumulation of revenues and surpluses in deficits year over year, right? So like, it's almost like your savings account. That's basically what the fund balance is. It's not just, you know, what's in your savings account isn't what you put in there for 1 year. It's what you've put in your whole life, right? So that is our net worth. If we're talking about like a private business, right? Like a Google, whatever, that's our retained earnings. That's our net worth. I mean, that's, you have all your assets, you know, cash, receivables, and you have your liabilities, your payables, et cetera. And whatever the difference is your net worth.
Right.
You know, it's kind of like if you did your own personal balance sheet, you know, you put all your assets, your house, you know, your retirement accounts, and what are your liabilities, maybe some credit cards, car loans, whatever. And, you know, you did a personal financial statement, right? And the difference there is your net worth. The fund balances are net worth. You know, it's not exactly what our cash balance is, but, it's essentially our lifetime. Since the inception of the city, that is the accumulation of surpluses and deficits over decades.
Right, and I've worked on projects where, well, every project I've ever worked on had a contingency, and it was
Right.
tied to the project, but in your case, or in the city's case, the contingency is not tied to a department. It's tied, it's in one location that you.
Right, so yeah, and just to clarify, right, because the term contingency gets kind of thrown around when they're talking about contingency within
Right, 'cause we were
a
looking
capital
at-
project.
Right,
So in terms of the contingency that we're talking about, where, you know, there's a draw from contingency made to pay a retirement account, or this department over, we're taking from contingency. Normally, we're only taking from contingency, right? We're not putting in. For 24, there were so many draws on contingency that, and you'll see where I'm putting money back in the contingency because we had accounts like the health insurance and the dental optical that were underspent. So I'm putting the money back in a contingency. So when the departments come back and do their transfers, they'll have that to take it out. It's really semantics, because otherwise what they would just do is we would say it's coming from fund balance.
right.
It's like 6.5, you know, 6.5, half dozen the other. That part of it doesn't matter. The contingency that the departments are referring to when they're talking about, like, they're doing a capital project and a project budget.
Yeah.
That's like that's a completely different concept than this. That's just like more like an allowance, like you know, when they're doing a $5 million project and, you know, they build 10% of the cost in for contingency.
Of course. 'cause
That's
the cost of
completely
the
unrelated
project,
to this
that's
contingency. That's just,
different kind of-
you know, if the project goes over, they want to make sure they have enough funding, of whether they build a contingency into a capital project budget, so they ask for the proper amount of bonding, so they don't have to come back and ask again.
Right,
That's a different concept, but the budgetary contingency, basically every year closes out, it's gone. Like once we close out 24, whatever is left in that 24 contingency is gone. I mean, that's just becomes part of the overall calculation of our 24 performance, revenues and expenses. And in terms of the account itself too, you'll never see an expense in contingency. Like if you looked at the budgetary account, you'll never see expense there, because we're taking money from there and putting it in the department's
got it.
budget, so they spend it there.
Yeah,
The contingency itself is never spent. It's just a budgetary account that we're pulling and moving to other places.
thank you for that explanation.
But I do think I'll close this out. When we what I'm seeing so far is when we close out 24, it's gonna be tighter. It's much tighter than it was last year. And I know I've said it before, but yeah, cash was very tight at the end of the year.
Above zero.
Above zero, we didn't have to do revenue notes, anything like that, but what I've said internally, and I'll say to this group here, is that, and it came up tonight, is we're doing some of these larger capital projects, even to the extent that they're grant funded, they still are, I'm not gonna say a drain on cash, but there's a need to have available cash to fund these projects,
Sure,
even in the first instance.
Yeah.
You know, like for deeps, we're still waiting on some of the grant money to come in, so we've had to fund in the first instance. So, you know, you might see where I'm asking for bond ordinances where, you know, there's maybe a a minor amount of match on the city's end, but the overall project is grant funded and is a significant project. That allows us, in the event we have to, borrow for cash flow reasons until the grants come in. I try not to do that. You know, we do very little of that, but I think, we'll have to do more of that in the near future. Particularly with some of these large grants that are out there. Yeah, because I think I told you, I mean, I measure our cash like month over month from year to year, so I always see where we're at. We're several $1 million lighter in cash at the end of 24 than we're at the end of 23. So that's enough to get my attention. So, I don't know.
All right, committee report reads, on behalf of all city departments, request approval of the attached budgetary transfer totaling $995,377 to reconcile 2024 general fund employee benefit accounts. This transfer has a positive financial impact of $408,985, which is being used to replenish the 2024 contingency budgetary account. We have a motion, second, Steve Shabbat, any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. And the last item, another budget.
So the next item is for the sewer fund. This is a similar concept, budgetary transfer to close out all the 2024 sewer employee benefit accounts. This one I'm asking from just over $200,000 on that to close out the sewer fund. The explanation is probably a little confusing, and I won't bore you with it here. I'll just give you like a 5,000 foot view, and if you want further questions, I can try to answer them. But the sewer fund is, the basis of accounting for the sewer fund is different than the general fund. The general fund, by and large, the expense accounts are on what we call a modified accrual basis, which is almost like a cash basis. The sewer fund is different in that it's like a full accrual. It's the method of accounting where it's significantly different from the general fund is that there are actuarial calculations that come down from the state and for the retirement fund. So where we budget based upon what we're billed from the state retirement system, and in both the general fund and sewer fund. The sewer fund every year, I have to book crazy adjustments to the retirement expense based upon actuarial calculations that are passed down by the state. And they throw the numbers wildly. Just because we're asking from $200,000 in fund balance to balance out those accounts doesn't mean that we actually were overspent. This is mainly a non-cash budgetary transfer. So like when you look at the actual transfer, you'll see that we're putting, $125,000 into one of the state retirement accounts. That's purely an actuarial calculation. We had to do a journal entry to recognize additional retirement expense. And that's essentially is the state retirement system is underfunded, and whatever that underfunding calculation is, not as bad as other states, but whatever that calculation is at the end of the year, the state tells us what the number is, and we got to book it. So, but I try, but I'm sure municipalities don't even ask for budget transfers for it. Just they let their numbers rock, whatever they are, and they explain to their auditors that it's cash versus. But when I give our books to the auditors, I try to have every single account within budget. I don't want to get into that conversation of, this is not cash basis. Our auditors understand the entries, so, but you'll see that. I mean, the sewer fund is a little wacky with things like that. The one number I don't have yet, and we'll have towards the end of the year, is there's a similar concept on the sewer fund with medical. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the concept of what they call OPEB. The city has on our citywide financial statements, not the general fund and the sewer fund, but like if you ever look at like our citywide financials, when I give you the audit in September,
Mhm.
there's a wacky number out there that says we have a liability of, it varies like $70 million. And what that number is, we actually pay an actuary to do a calculation that's required for the audit. It is the calculation of what the city's present value liability is for medical insurance for all employees, all current employees, and they do an actual calculation of what's the average age of the current employee, who might retire, who might not retire, what the cost of insurance is, and then it also includes current retirees. And it calculates expected life expectancy, when they, how long they'll live, et cetera.
Well,
And the present value of that medical insurance benefit is tens of millions of dollars. So that's the citywide financial statement. We don't have to book anything in the general fund because it's a different method of accounting. It's called modified accrual, which is closer to cash basis. But I have to book something again in the sewer fund. I don't have that number yet, but I will in April. So I might come back and you'll see where I'm asking for another large transfer of medical expense in the sewer fund. And it's purely, once again, non-cash, because we budget on a pay-as-you-go basis. And in New York State, under state law, a municipality can't even fund OPEB. You can't fund OPEB. So municipalities have liabilities on their books of tens of millions of dollars, but you can't pre-fund any of it. It's basically just pay as you go.
but that's a lot.
But for accounting purposes, you have to record this liability. Like if you look at our audit, even if you looked at the sewer fund, just the sewer fund, and you go back and, for fund, you can look at, in the water fund is recorded the same way as the sewer fund.
Okay.
You'll see a liability on the balance sheet for employee, what they call OPEB, which is this.
And what does OPEB stand for? What's the?
Other post-employment benefits, I think it's other.
That's not, that
But
makes
it's
sense.
post-employment benefits, but it's specifically medical.
Mhm.
It's medical. But it's, once again, it's the present value of all these estimated future payments for all your current retirees and all your current employees as they're projected to retire. You stagger out all those payments, what you think they're gonna be, and you present value them back with like some type of discount rate, like imputed interest. But it's actually an actuary who has to do these calculations. So, we actually have to bring on an actuary, and we get a report from the actuary, and then we give the report to the auditor. So I'm gonna put you all to sleep, but
Sounds like fun,
that's it,
Jen.
yeah. I'm glad I'm not an actuary, I'll tell you that. That's worse than being an accountant. More boring, I would say, right?
Well, thank you for that explanation.
Sure.
So,
All right.
Now we know.
Committee report reads, on behalf of all city departments, request approval of the attached budgetary transfer totaling $229,894 to reconcile 2024 sewer fund employee benefit accounts. I'm asking to use $200,180 of fund balance in the sewer fund to balance this transfer. Motion?
Motion.
second,
Tierney, second by Sarah Nasty. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. And if I'm correct, that's the end of our agenda. Anybody else see it differently?
I don't see any other items on the agenda.
All right, then. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Alyssa. We're done.
Have a good night.
You too.